What's up, idols? It's Cece Lesson 3. Welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for clicking on this video. I want to talk with you guys about something that doesn't get discussed enough until there's like a major incident. Then we start talking about it. Then we stop talking about it until the next major incident. I don't know about you, but I keep seeing stories, reading stories, hearing about stories where young, seemingly healthy Korean people are dying suddenly of a cardiac arrest. Their hearts just stop. I want to talk about why, as we discuss this recent incident that has reignited this debate and this discussion in South Korea and people interested in K-culture in general. But before we dive in, I want to let you guys know I just uploaded a naughty story on Patreon, NSFW, sort of spicy. This girl decided to share with us how her current friends with benefits situation has evolved. It's not something she ever wanted. Then she met the right guy, and it takes off from there. Click the link in the description if you want to join my Patreon and gain access to all sorts of NSFW story times, stuff that's too spicy for YouTube, get demonetized on YouTube, all that good stuff. Also, help promote this video. I hope we can get as many people talking about this and aware about this as possible. Leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and also help engage, drive up the engagement of it. Leave a comment below that says "for the watch" if you don't know what to say. It really helps me so much. So this is what the good people are talking about right now. This is the latest incident that has reignited this debate. The suspected overwork death of a 26-year-old employee at the popular bakery chain London Bagel Museum has reignited a fierce debate in Korea over whether employers should be required to track work hours. At the heart of the controversy are questions about the employee's actual working hours. The 26-year-old, who had been stationed at the company's Incheon branch, was found dead in the staff dormitory in July, a day after finishing a late shift. The bereaved family alleged that he had been pushed to work nearly 80 hours a week, often skipping meals and only getting a few hours of sleep. The company denied the claim, insisting his schedule did not approach 80 hours. It argued that as it operates within fixed business hours, prolonged overtime is unlikely to occur on a regular basis. On October 29th, the Labor Ministry began to inspect this branch and see what's actually going on. The government is pushing ahead with plans to mandate work hour recording, and the labor minister has stressed the need to implement the requirement without delay. Quote, "It makes no sense that a country with advanced IT capabilities still cannot mandate the recording of working hours," Labor Ministry Kim Yong-hoon said. In the case of the London Bagel Museum, we were able to trace the employees' movement showing nearly 80 hours of work. He added, emphasizing that the mandatory work hour tracking should be implemented at the earliest possible time. Under the current labor laws in Korea, employers are not required to track or record employees' actual working hours. However, calls to make such record-keeping mandatory have been raised for years. So yeah, a seemingly healthy 26-year-old man was working nearly 80 hours a week and collapsed because of it. Simply put, we see a lot of these sudden cardiac arrests in South Korea because Korean people are too stressed and far too overworked. It's unregulated and it's a serious problem. Instead of addressing these actual concerns and valid concerns, you hear "화이팅! 힘내세요! 수고해!" when we should be saying rest and take a break. Not keep working hard, keep fighting hard. I mean, seriously, how common is it to scroll or read and you see that some seemingly young, healthy actor, actress, singer, musician, Korean celebrity suddenly died of a cardiac arrest? I remember last November, Park Min-jae, who was an actor, only age 32, same age as me, was suddenly found dead from cardiac arrest. He had no known health issues, he was seemingly healthy, and they ruled it out as not a, which I will say, when talking about cardiac arrest, whenever you look into it or try and do research, it does get pretty murky because sometimes people unalive themselves and the family doesn't want it to be on record or public knowledge of an unaliving, so they just say they suffered a cardiac arrest, their heart stopped. But what they did to make their heart stop may be an unaliving. Wi-sung was 43, died earlier this year of a cardiac arrest. There's a few, but these are the ones that are like on the top of my head because they were a little more recent. And like I said, there are many accounts of these people being found dead because of an unaliving, but there are loads, an abundant amount of people who are seemingly healthy, seemingly happy, no foul play, no indication of any sort of tampering. Their heart just stopped. Do you guys remember when Hwang Dong-hyuk, aka the director of Squid Game, said he lost teeth because of the stress and the pressure while working on Squid Game? Can you imagine working so hard that your teeth start falling out? And he felt pressure to keep going, keep doing it, keep making episodes because the show was a hit, the money was a good incentive, so he just kept going anyway. Luckily, he's still alive. I want to talk about a woman named Park Hyun-suk, and she is a widow after she lost her husband. He too was overworked to death. By the way, there is an official term for this, death by working too hard or overworking. It's called gwarosa. In case you guys ever wanted to know, gwadosa. It's a very important term to be discussed. But this woman did an interview where she discussed the final moments of her husband and reflected on his life and their time together. And what's crazy is during this interview, she's scrolling her phone looking for a picture to show the person interviewing her. And she's like, wow, I actually don't have many pictures of us. I could have swore we took a picture together on that trip. I could have sworn I had more pictures of him in my phone. And when she finally got to a picture of him, it was him in his work uniform. Her husband was Che Soo-hong, and he worked as a food supplier. He had to make sure everything was on time and met standard requirements. During the week, every day of the week, he would travel to various factories and oversee and inspect all the production. On Saturdays, he would be in his office doing paperwork, and he would often bring his work home because he's at home answering calls, filling out more paperwork, and in the little bit of time he had for free, he would sleep. He would try to get as much sleep as he could. So one day, it was about 7 p.m. on a Saturday where he had already left, got up, went to the office. He was found collapsed on his office floor. Before he left, he complained about being really tired, but he was always really tired, so him and his wife didn't really think too much of it. And what's so messed up about this is he has a wife and a daughter who had to fight the company he worked for compensation because he died at work. He died from work-related problems. Dad was the breadwinner. The husband made all the money, and the daughter and the wife were on their own after that. These companies will work you to the bone and then replace you as soon as you're gone and leave your family with nothing if they can. If they can get away with it, they will. No job is worth losing your life for. And I know it's easy for us to say that because we're not in that culture and that society where you're taught this from a very young age that you're supposed to work as hard as you can. That's all that matters in life. But I do feel like more people need to hear that. It does not matter and it's not worth your life. Another story people have been talking about recently. Have you guys heard of hueshiks? I've talked about it a few times on my channel, but if we want to talk more about how companies will discard, remove, and replace workers, here we go. Earlier this year in May, there was a man who died of acute alcohol intoxication after 3 consecutive days of heavy drinking at work-related functions. If you guys know anything about Korean culture, you know these drinking-related work functions are mandatory. Even as a teacher, you have to go, you have to do it, and you have to drink. Saying no to these types of events and functions, you risk demotion, you risk the chance at a possible promotion, you risk termination, and you risk being on bad blood with your coworkers and your bosses. So you go, you have to, you must. You go and you eat and you drink until the elders, your bosses, your coworkers are satisfied. I have personal experience with this. Now, luckily for me, soju, I handle soju pretty well. But imagine if you don't. Imagine if you don't even drink. You are screwed. This company fought his family hard to avoid having to pay them compensation for the death of their worker. The family would have been left with nothing. They denied the fact that it was any work-related incident, but luckily the judge did side with the family because he looked at the facts. In fact, this is what the judge said. The drinking sessions likely had a strong work-related context, as it was held with the foreign workers to welcome his upcoming assignment abroad. It would have been difficult for him to refuse drinks under the circumstances, and the cost of 1 million won was excessive for a purely personal gathering. Because the company tried to argue that the third gathering, they didn't dispute the first 2 excessive drinking sessions. They tried to dispute the third one, saying like it wasn't work related, he didn't have to go, but as you can see, he kind of did. But yeah, this man was found in his car around dawn after drinking the night before, and that was the 3rd night in a row. Can you imagine? A man goes to 3 work-related drinking sessions and dies of acute alcohol intoxication, and the company says that ain't got shit to do with us, that's not work related. And this is a pretty common and well-known issue in Korea. A lot of people sadly know someone in their family, someone's friend, who died from working too hard. The widow I mentioned earlier, once she lost her husband, she was trying to increase awareness and get people talking about this. She decided to arrange meetups. Meetups for people who lost someone from Guadosa, working too hard, overwork, death by overworking. Initially, only like 3 people showed up. But eventually, once the word got out there, everyone realized they knew someone who also seemed to mysteriously have their heart stop after working excessively. And like I said, this sort of stress and work ethic is instilled in you from a very young age. Just the other day, in South Korea, there was just something known as suneung. Have you guys ever heard of that? It's basically a super intense examination period where it's so intense that even flights are canceled, grounded. They make their circles and do loops to avoid being an audible distraction for children taking these exams. There were a few times where I was encouraged to not travel during this period because travel would be a little bit slower. And I'm sorry, but all of this work, stress, or stress, it's incredibly detrimental in the long run. We're already seeing some of the consequences of it because you cannot breathe without hearing somebody complain about there not being enough babies born. How on God's green earth do people really expect you to work like dogs? Like right now, I believe the max work hours in Korea is like 52 hours a week. It's like 40 plus 12 overtime. And there was talk to push it up to 69, which is insane. But how do you expect people to work this hard and this long and still have time to raise a family? Like, I'm sorry, I'm literally speechless. Like, yes, it's true, there aren't enough people being born to replace those who are aging and dying. But at the same time, if you can't even take care of the people who are already here, you're working them to death. Or like in this incident that happened last week in Busan, where there was an 18-year-old who got rejected from over a dozen hospitals because they didn't have the right specialist for him because he's technically a kid still, so they needed a pediatric person to look at him. And he died of a cardiac arrest after being rejected from like 14 hospitals. 18. You can't even take care of the people who live and exist now, but you're urging people to usher more of them in. It does not make sense to me. And this isn't just Korea, this is global, especially in the States right now. They will fight you hard to force that baby out of you, but they won't care if the baby starves. America. One of the most common questions I get is people asking me why I don't want to work in Korea anymore, why I don't want to live in Korea anymore. I love Korea. I visit all the time. I love to spend my time there and leave. I'm glad that I got the work experience in there. Like, I feel like I learned a lot. Korea was the first country I ever went to on my own at a very young age. I was 23 and I noped out of America and said, I'm gonna do my own thing and figure it out myself. I don't regret that whatsoever. I absolutely love that I got to live in Korea, but I got that out of my system. I think it's something that most people should experience, at least for a little while. But I really pity the average Korean who has to do this for their whole life. Korea is a great place with delicious food, great entertainment, beautiful sights to see, but they really need to find a good balance between work and life, because working too much is taking their life. Every functional society needs healthy and happy people in it. So yeah, that's all. Guadosa. If you guys want to look that up, look into it. There's honestly so many accounts of this, so many stories, so many incidents of people who worked really intensely and then were suddenly found dead because their heart stopped. I know this video is a bit more grim, but it's something that I think is really important and should be talked about. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did, remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Annyeong.